Good morning. We get asked a lot about why it's so hard to get off Suboxone or buprenorphine. Most people just call it Suboxone because that's the most commonly prescribed form of buprenorphine. And it's true, it's really hard for people to stop their buprenorphine. And there's a number of reasons for that. But first, I'd like to just say buprenorphine can be a really helpful medicine for a lot of people who have opioid use disorder. We actually prescribe it for our patients. It's particularly good for people who are at risk of relapse, and if they try just going off everything completely and they're not really working a recovery program, or there's a lot of stress or there's a lot of temptations for them to use, they're in an environment that's not conducive to staying clean and sober, and if they're maybe not 100% committed to sobriety, then people often relapse, and Suboxone can be life-changing. And so we think it's a good medicine. One of the reasons it's good is because it's such a long-acting drug that it just sits on the receptors for a long time, and it doesn't really give the dopamine spike that makes people want more and more. So Suboxone's a good drug for the people that it's good for, and that's part of our job, is to figure out who's a good fit for that. But there are definitely times when people don't need it anymore, and it's time for them to come off. People who have some sobriety, they're working a program, their environment's changed, their attitude, their motivation's changed. And so typically they'll try to wean down. It turns out that Suboxone binds to the receptors so tightly that it's hard and it takes a long time for it to come off. It also binds at a fairly low dose. So it's interesting, at 2 milligrams of Suboxone, you're filling up probably 60, 70, 80% of the receptors. When you get up to 4 milligrams and 8, you get a little bit higher, but not a lot higher, because you've already filled up most of the receptors at low doses. And so most people find that if they're taking 16 milligrams or 20 milligrams, they can drop down to 8 milligrams, down to 4 milligrams pretty easily and not really have much withdrawal. I'll never forget one of the first patients we detoxed. He was in Florida, and he was using a form before Suboxone even came out. It was called Buprenorphine, and it was a little vial, and the dose was 0.3 milligrams. And you had to draw it up with a needle and stick it under your tongue just as a solution. And he had got down to half a vial every other day, so he wasn't taking 0.3, he wasn't taking 0.15, he was taking 0.075, and he had one of the hardest detoxes we'd seen at the time. So even at that dose, there's still a lot of the drug sitting on the receptors, that has to come off. So getting down to lower doses is fairly easy, but getting below 2 milligrams or 1 milligram just becomes really difficult for most people. Because the drug binds so tightly, it takes so long to get off the receptors. It's probably also related to the fact that buprenorphine works on the delta and the kappa receptors as well, and people don't really know exactly what difference that makes, but when people come off, we see people have more irritability, more insomnia, more depression, more anxiety than we do coming off the other opioids, and they're hard enough to come off as they are. So you have this protracted withdrawal that goes on a long time because of how long the drug sits on the receptors and how long acting it is, but also more of the anxiety and the depression, which makes it miserable. I'm really happy with the way we detox people off Suboxone, because what we do is gradually introduce Naltrexone over the course of 8 days, and often we extend that a little bit more to 9 or 10 or even 12, so that the brain is getting adjusted to the fact that all the buprenorphine, the Suboxone, is going to be gone and being replaced by the Naltrexone. What that does, it probably decreases the number of receptors by going back to normal much quicker. It helps decrease cravings, and it helps convince the body to start making its own natural endorphins. So our detox works really well to get people off Suboxone, but we still tell people to expect the first month or two, their energy's still not going to be 100%. After a couple of weeks, it might be up to 50, 60%. By a month, it's probably more like 80 or 90%. But I think if people's expectations are good and their long-term goal is healthy, then they get through that easily, and they're really happy that that they're off of that and they're able to be on Vivitrol or on a Naltrexone implant and working a good program. So call us if you have any questions or if you have any future topics. We'd love to hear from you.